Hello everybody, welcome back to another reading. Today we're taking a look at the case of the missing Sodder children. In 1945, around Christmas time, I believe December 24th, the Sodder family went to bed with the youngest five, except for one. I believe the youngest girl was sleeping in her mother's room, but the youngest five, aside from her, were sleeping in the attic, and the rest were sleeping, I think, on the second floor. And they heard some noises, at least the mother heard some noises on the roof, and after a while it turns out that the house was on fire. They tried to get out of the house, and all except for the five children that were in the attic were outside at one point, and they never saw them again beyond that point. They tried to put out the fire, obviously. They wanted to try and save the kids from the attic by using the ladder that was usually propped up against the house to get to the attic, but they couldn't find the ladder because it had been moved. Then the father decided to try and drive into town with his truck to warn the fire department because they couldn't call them. They just got no connection. And the truck turned out to not work, which led them to believe that it was sabotaged. Another thing is that other people also tried to call for the fire department to come out and help them with this fire, but they also couldn't get through them because it turned out that the phone lines were cut. Now, where exactly the phone lines were cut, I'm not sure. If it was like in their area or in some central location, never really got to the bottom of that. But so eventually one of the neighbors decided to drive down themselves to the fire department to alert the fire chief and get the things moving. But by the time that the fire department actually got to the house, it was 6 hours after the fire started, and the fire lasted for about, well, just under an hour, I believe, and it managed to total the entire house in that time. So them arriving 6 hours later was super not helpful. All sorts of other mysterious things happened after that. There were no remains found in the ash pile. Normally when a house fire kills people, you do find some remains, and it's not hot enough to burn the remains of people who die in a fire. Usually not in any case, because that needs to be, I believe, over 1,000 degrees Celsius or Fahrenheit, I'm not really sure. Well, however hot a crematorium gets inside one of their cremation ovens, that's how hot it needs to get to burn human remains, and a simple house fire just does not reach those temperatures. So that is already some kind of suspicious. The ladder that was normally propped up against the house was found on a embankment a bit further away, where nobody really had any business leaving it there. Another weird thing is when the snow went away, when it thawed, they found a pineapple bomb in one of the areas like around the house, which is kind of like a thing that they have from the war. And the mother thought that maybe that's what you heard on the roof, because there was quite a lot of noise up there before the fire started. Then the fire chief told somebody that, hey, when I went there that night, I found a heart and I put it in a box and buried it. It's like, oh, hey, I found some type of remains, right? So people went to investigate that, and they found a box that was buried, but it actually contained a beef liver. And that was also very suspicious, because who, first of all, finds a heart and then buries it? If you're dealing with a family that's looking for any type of sign of their loved ones in the ashes, then you find a heart, you would want to notify them of that, or at least send it off for investigation or something along those lines. But nope, fire chief thought it was very convincing to claim he found the heart and then buried it, and it turned out to be a beef liver, so that was also interesting. Then many years later, when all these weird coincidences started piling up, the parents decided to dig up the remains of the house, because right after the fire they had covered it up with a bunch of sand, and then the investigator that they hired to look through it, I believe an FBI investigator or something along those lines, found a vertebrae of a boy, which turned out to be not their boy. Either that was already in the sand that the father used the excavator to cover the land with, or that was placed, because it's kind of like a similar type of thing. Like, the reason the chief of the fire department gave for claiming that they had found the heart and buried it was, according to him, to get the family to stop looking for the kids. I guess he intended that to sound like, I just want to give you peace of mind, but I think it came more across of, don't look into this, don't worry about it. And I think that the vertebrae just showing up and the investigation where one person was overseeing it, that was not part of the Sodder family, it seems kind of suspicious knowing what has happened before and how strange things went. So that's very odd. Now it turns out that George Sodder was actually originally Italian. I believe his name was Giorgio Sodder or something along those lines, and he had spoken out against Mussolini back in the early World War II days, and Mussolini was eventually killed, obviously, by the people, and there were certain people who had heard him talk negatively about Mussolini, and Mussolini actually had supporters, so the idea was that maybe some of the people that supported Mussolini had overheard him saying that, and they were so upset with him at the time that they were like, we're gonna get you. And it's kind of also supported by the fact that there was an insurance salesman who showed up at the house sometime before the fire and tried to sell them insurance. And when they said no thank you, the insurance salesman started making weird threats about the kids and stuff like that. Not entirely sure what he said, but it sounded like it had something to do with his Italy days. And then I think sometime after that, I think it was after that, there was this electrician. Well, in any case, either before and after, there was an electrician that pointed out a fuse box. Oh yeah, that's another thing I need to tell you. A fuse box on the outside of the house saying, hey, that could cause a fire. Because the reason that that was strange, because an electrician you would think knows a thing or two about fuse boxes, maybe he was right, I don't know. But the thing is, they blamed the house fire, the officials, on electrical issues. But if there were electrical issues, then it was very strange that during the fire itself, all the lights in the house were still on, so there was no issues with the electricity there. And if you were to have something happening with your electrical, like something burns through or something, starts sparking, then you would think other lights and stuff would stop working as well because the electricity would be cut, or there would be something wrong with that. So that was also very strange. So in any case, lots of strange happenings there. There were even sightings of the Sodder children around town and then in other places. Many years later, the mother received a photo of a man, and it was claimed that that was one of the 5 kids with a cryptic message on the back that I don't think anybody has actually deciphered yet. It seems to me like an anagram, and part of the code, like the number that was on there, was apparently a zip code somewhere in Italy at some point. So that was all like pointing towards, hey, they're in Italy, or somebody who is from Italy took them or did something in any case. So very long story, but I just wanted to like give you like a little introduction to the story itself. Normally we have like a much simpler case, but this time I thought there were so many ins and outs, I thought I would mention it. So what I wanted to do finally was try to use the tarot to see if we can find out anything about the 5 missing kids, if they're still out there, if they were still out there, because it's been such a long time. I believe most of them will have passed away by this point, or be very, very old if they're still out there. So if we can find anything out about their fates, perhaps during and after the fire. And we're going to use, first of all, the Wise Dog Tarot, which is this one currently on the table. And for further questions, we're moving on to Tarot of the Magical Forest, which is this one. There. So now that we got all of that out of the way, as per usual, I want to tell you that I'm an intuitive reader. I'm just going to start shuffling the cards. In any case, we're going to see what we get, and when I have enough to look at, we'll take a look at the story that unfolds. So let's go. Okay, so we got quite a lot of cards here. The 5 of Pentacles in particular was very interesting when that came out, because I'm going to start over there, but still I want to pull this one up real quick. If you look at this, it says animal shelter, and there's the 5 of Pentacles. 5 Pentacles usually about some type of loss, etc. And in this case it was 5 children, so it's almost like the 5 children were represented in these pentacles being lost to the world because they are no longer in the shelter. They're out there in the snow and the cold. So that was very interesting to see that one coming out. Let's see, we usually start down here. We have here 3 of Cups and the Queen of Cups in reverse next to the Page of Wands. Now, one thing that I forgot to tell you in the intro, and yes, there was more, is that after the whole disappearance and the fire, the parents were looking constantly to try and find their kids, obviously, and once they passed away, the kids that remained, the 5 kids that remained, because he had 10 in total, that's a lot, I know. The 5 that remained went and continued the search, except for the eldest son, who was about 23 at the time, I believe, and he just kept telling them, you know what, forget about it, what's done is done, and they probably died in the fire, why would we continue to search for them, you know, it's only really bringing us more grief, etc. I don't know if he said all those exact words, but that type of thing, like, you know, it's been so long, let's just give it up, you know, don't be our parents that are completely obsessed with it, because I believe the mother wore black ever since the fire, as in mourning for the rest of her life, so the parents were pretty obsessed. Well, if you lost 5 kids, you would definitely be looking for them the rest of your life as well, so it's not surprising at all. But yeah, so the 4 kids, except for the eldest, continued to search, and I kind of wonder, because we have here the 3 cups is like almost like a party or something, some type of harmony, and then you have the Queen of Cups in reverse and the Page of Wands. Now this seems to me like a very quick intro to the story, because the story started on Christmas Eve, I believe the 24th is the Christmas Eve, and they had just had their packages open, the kids were playing with the toys, so there was definitely a lot of harmony and peace in the household. But then we see the Queen of Cups in reverse next to the Page of Wands. Now, one of the things that was told was that the eldest daughter had fallen asleep on the couch downstairs, all the lights were on, the door was open, all the curtains were open, and the mother noticed that around midnight as well. So it's almost like maybe the Queen of Cups is implicating the eldest daughter as well. I don't really know for sure, but the eldest son definitely sounded suspicious afterwards, as we figured out that he wasn't interested in finding out where the 5 youngest had gone. But we see here this Page of Wands energy, which is very much a let's just do this type energy, like they've set their sights on something and they're just going to go out and do it head over heels. I'm going to go take care of this thing. Queen of Cups over there, somebody who is emotionally manipulative and does have quite a big role in most people's lives. So it's almost like this is a combination of one person, either the sister and the brother, or the brother who, of course, as the eldest, will have had a bond with all of the children and probably was looked up to, perhaps, and their emotions turned sour, or they went the wrong way and they made hasty actions that they perhaps regretted later. We also see this echoed in the reversed Empress over here, next to the King of Cups and the Ten of Cups in reverse. Let me just grab those real quick. There they are. So this is continuing the somebody letting them down, and that caused a lot of emotional heartbreak and loss, because that is the Ten of Cups in reverse right there. This is once again represented as a king, the King of Cups. So before was a queen, and then it later like metastasized, if you want to call it that. It's a bit of a nasty word because it's usually related to other things, but still, it's turned or matured into a king energy who said, you know what, I'm going to stop taking care of certain people, certain individuals. The normal caring nature is going to be perverted, and now we have here the Ten of Cups in reverse. So far, it does really seem to implicate the eldest son, and I didn't mention it before because I kind of forgotten, but when I saw these cards coming up, I was like, hey, yeah, there was this other thing going on. And it doesn't look good for them. At least somebody, it seems to point towards the eldest son, but it could be anybody really. It seems to have really turned their back on the family and the kids, and yeah, just stopped being a nurturer, and instead moved to make things very sour for the other members of the family. Then we have here, like I said, the Five of Pentacles next to the King of Pentacles and the Chariots. So like I said, the 5 kids are lost. We just saw the 10 of Cups in reverse energy, so that is the initial emotional distress, the loss, and then they're feeling forlorn, it seems. These cards seem to be pointing towards them not having been in the fire, and instead having been whisked away. We see here a King of Pentacles, so instead of Cups energy, we're now moving on to the resources. This might be somebody who is making money off of their disappearance, perhaps. And then there's a Chariot to quickly whisk people away. That really seems like kidnapping. This literally looks like a kidnapping lineup over here, from the perspective of the person doing the kidnapping and the kids as well. Then we see here Temperance, and I thought it was kind of interesting how it was next to the reversed world over here, and the 10 of Swords, and then we have the 4 of Wands over here. So this seems to say, grabbing these two first. So Temperance is usually about balancing things, balancing the earthly with the spiritual, etc. And it is next to the Chariot over there with the 5 of Pentacles. So this is them disappearing parts, and then we have here Temperance and the World. And when I saw these two next to each other, I really felt like this meant they had to adjust their worldview, because it was now turned upside down, and also they were no longer who they were in the world before. So they were lost to the world in a sense. That definitely brought with it a lot of negative emotions and feelings, because we have here the 10 of Swords, but it's next to the 4 of Wands. So this says to me that even though initially it was very difficult for them to be in this state, that they did eventually end up finding some type of balance, some type of peace in the 4 of Wands. Like they had no choice, obviously, and that's where the Temperance also came in. Like, okay, this is the new reality in this world. We're gonna have to sort ourselves out and make it do somehow. And that's where I see the 4 of Wands. So it kind of looks like wherever they went, whoever they went with, wherever they ended up, they had a lot of obviously trouble adjusting to this new situation, but ultimately they did end up sorting themselves out and living some type of life. Because if you look at this card as well, it's actually very telling for this. I'm just turning it up right. This is the usual way that you would normally see this 10 of Swords. You can see up there in the sky that this dog is being hugged by somebody, like really had a lot of love and care. And at the bottom he appears to be remembering that, and just I guess looking at everything that they lost. So in reverse, I would say that they definitely spent a lot of time doing that, but ultimately they went ahead and had to let that go, even though I'm pretty sure it never really let them go completely. Something like that you will remember for the rest of your life. And they still managed to find some way to deal with it. So this first line really seems to implicate somebody within the family. Like I said, it really seems to sound like the elder brother, because he was the only one who didn't feel like they should continue looking. I want to do some readings, or at least a couple of cards on him, to see what was up with him in relation to the 4 youngest, or the 5 youngest. Let's see if we can find anything about that. So the Empress came out again. So because I was asking about him and we get the Empress for a second time, it does seem, because we had the Empress back here as well, that they definitely fit this part over here. That's what it seems to be pointing towards. Like, regardless of what he may have done or arranged, he definitely did see them as his own children, maybe even like he was the big brother, and he definitely took care of them. Let's see what else we can get on him. And we get the 9 of Wands and the 2 of Cups right here. So this seems definitely like a confirmation that he was involved. And the 2 of Cups makes me wonder if what the reason behind that, what that might have been. Like maybe there were certain threats, because they already had that insurance person showing up, they had that electrician saying suspicious things, And it's almost like because he's got the Emperor's energy twice, I get this impression that maybe the reason behind it was not necessarily to hurt the parents and the rest of the kids, but maybe to protect the 5 youngest, something like that. Let's see if we can find anything about that, so his motivations, what they might have been. The 5 of Swords, so that is conquering somebody, either with words or some outwitting them somehow. So this is also kind of pointing to, well, this might also point towards having had maybe some discussions with people, winning those perhaps, but I don't know who the discussions were with, obviously. Maybe he had like some arguments with people who perhaps already thought that maybe the kids need to leave for their own good, if you go down that track, that chain of thoughts. Let's see what else we can find. 2 cards, Knight of Swords and the King of Swords. Oh no, wait, not the King of Swords. Justice reversed. Okay, so following the 5 of Swords down there, we see the Knight of Swords is even more, like over here, he's just like winning arguments and stuff like that, like convincing people, maybe convincing himself possibly, because I don't really see, well, there's a couple of people in the background here, but they're very far away, so maybe he either sees them coming and has defeated them, or has decided that he is going to defeat them, because over here we've got the Knight of Swords charging off. Arranging things perhaps, like quickly making plans and stuff like that, speaking to people, next to Justice reversed. So this sounds to me like after he had those altercations, he decided to very quickly move ahead and do things that were perhaps not right, because we have Justice in reverse, even though when I saw it first I thought it was a King of Swords energy, and this almost seems like this almost strikes me as father versus son, these two. Like they had an altercation perhaps, and then they decided to, I don't know, disagree, but the son moved ahead anyway. Because one of the things that I noticed when I watched a video on this, maybe the person who made the video made a mistake there, but it seemed a little odd. Because they said at one point, like when the fire was going, the father had used a ladder to climb up and smash the window and to the attic to try and get the kids to come out, and he cut his wrist while doing that. But then later they said that the ladder was nowhere to be found. So how did he manage to climb up there and cut his hand if that was not the case? And the brother said that he initially had gone up there to try to wake the 5 and hadn't managed to do that, and then later said that actually he was downstairs with his family, like trying to yell up there for them to wake up. There's a difference between going there physically and shaking somebody and yelling up the stairs, obviously. So that was a very strange thing that makes me wonder, like, is there perhaps a connection between the father and the son? Like maybe they had been talking about certain things, maybe they were all concerned about certain things in the family and they decided to take some type of action, but they couldn't agree on what type of action. And then we have here the Wizard in reverse, so there's either some inability to take action or just frustrating somebody's ability to do things. Maybe also using their skills and powers to do things that others did not agree with. I think this reverse magician can apply to both of these cards. If we were to look at them as people, then both of them had issues manifesting their will, or at least manifested wills that perhaps were not in alignment with other people. What else can we find out about that? We have here the Two of Pentacles. Okay, so the Two of Pentacles is usually like a balancing card. This person also has 1 foot in the water and 1 foot on the land. So normally it's like a resource balance. And I think in this case, I don't know if the term zero-sum game actually applies here, but that's what's coming to mind. Like damned if you do, damned if you don't. We need to make up our mind. What are we going to do? Are we going to let them take the kids, or are we going to do something ourselves? I feel like this is the balancing act that either one or both of them were playing at the time. Because something that came to mind, if it were the people who were so against him because he had been against Mussolini, would they have kept the kids alive, or would they have done worse things to them? It's kind of like that type of thing. So what's coming up anyway? What seems to be coming up? Let's see if we can find anything about that. Let's put this aside for a second. Let's try to pull a few cards for the people like the insurance agent and the electrician, the people behind them perhaps, that may have been plotting against them and their kids. Let's see if we can find anything about them in relation to this. King of Swords in reverse. Okay. So they're definitely making threats. Maybe even planning things. I don't know, but it fell on the side of the father here and not quite on top of the Two of Pentacles. I think that means that the Two of Pentacles was definitely to try and thwart this King of Swords. Oops. And we have another Two of Cups here. So there's definitely some alignments going on here. Some type of alliances maybe. They were definitely on board with some of this. At least this Two of Cups maybe was ultimately okay with it. There may have been a connection there. And the Seven of Swords. Okay, so there does appear to be some connection between them, or at least there is some manipulation, some meddling going on here. Like maybe something just came to mind, like maybe they took the kids away. Not these plum guys, but the father-son duo down there. And then they decided to pretend that they had actually still been in the attic, and the people that were coming to the door threatening them, etc., believe that the kids also burned in the attic, but actually they were taken away by other people to safety. That's what I'm getting over here. And maybe that is why the eldest was like, hey, let's not look too much into this, because if they are found, then perhaps there'll be some issues relating to that. The people who were trying to hurt them might come back, that type of thing. We got another card here. We have here the Seven of Pentacles in reverse. So that is also kind of like not quite investing in the right things, perhaps also having invested a lot in something that didn't actually come true. And we have the Seven of Swords here initially, so this might seem that their plan was indeed thwarted. So that's an interesting twist, I think. Because there was definitely something going on that night, because one thing I forgot to say, which might also be interesting to note, is that the mother actually got called downstairs at one point during the night after everybody had already gone to sleep, because the phone was ringing, and that is why she knows that the lights were on, the door was open, and the curtain was open, and the kid, or the youngest, or no, the oldest daughter was sleeping on the couch. Anyway, she went downstairs to answer the phone, and there was some sounds of partying and laughing people in the background, and this woman asked about somebody, if they could come to the phone, a name that the mother did not recognize. So she was like, no, I don't think this is the right number, I think you're calling the wrong number. And then there was just a bunch of laughing on the other end, and then the phone got hung up. So that was also very strange. So there's definitely some threat in the air, and maybe the eldest and the father noticed that, because probably mother went back upstairs to go, that was strange. And so the other two were like, okay, this is the time that we need to move fast. And maybe that's why their stories didn't quite line up. I'm getting a lot of different impressions here. It's a bit of a mess. So there's some strange stuff happening here. And one thing that keeps coming back up to mind is that zip code that was on the back of that picture that the mother received at some point. And like, hey, this might mean that they were in Italy at that point. One of the people that saw a couple of the kids after the event as well said that they were with a group of Italian adults. So there's also that. I know, it's very strange. But the cards in AK seem to suggest that somebody was doing something. Ultimately, they were... Very nice description. Somebody was doing something. Anyway, but ultimately they decided to make the best of it. The kids did. But there was a lot in the works to get them there. And I feel like there were two parties that had bad intentions, or at least intentions for the kids, whether bad or good. And ultimately the person who whisked them away was doing this because they thought that it might protect them. That's what it seems to be saying. So a very complex case with a lot of ins and outs and strange happenings, and I'm pretty sure I haven't mentioned half of what was going on. I'm pretty sure I've forgotten a lot of stuff that was also said. But I hope you found this interesting, because I'm going to call it here. In any case, make sure to leave a like, and that really helps the channel along. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in another video, and bye-bye for now.